I'm excited to be here to share more about how to really conduct a meaningful conversation, meanwhile closing the sale and making that connection. When I first launched my brick and mortar business, I thought that everything was going to be history, right? That I was going to live the American dream of creating this business on my own and being really successful, but it became a nightmare pretty fast. When I first started, it was working long hours, and by the time that I was almost done with it, I was working 18-hour days. And that led me to really believe that there have got to be a way to work smarter and not harder. And so, long story short, I really took time off and completely reset myself. I started really taking care of myself. I really started asking the right questions in terms of what do I really want to create with my business besides just making the money? Because ultimately, that wasn't really bringing me what I really ultimately wanted was freedom. And I didn't have that. I thought that I was going to be able to take vacations and then work 3-4 days a week, but that wasn't the case. And I share that with you just to say that there is a reason why you're doing what you're doing, and really have to tap into that, and that is your why. And that's really important. Your values are super important, and that your freedom is much more important. So it's not so much of the end result, which is the money, because the money actually is going to come when you're passionate about doing what you do, and honestly when you're following your mission, and really depends on what it is that you believe in. And really knowing what it is, and the reason why I'm inspired by this topic is because when I first started my business, I did not know what it was like to have this type of conversations with people. I knew that I was okay with small talks and that I can get to know people really well. I have a pretty bubbly personality, or I'm pretty energetic. People tend to have fun having conversation with me, but to be honest, that didn't really translate until when I launched my business, and then I have to get it onto these quote unquote discovery calls or strategy calls. So I learned through really trial and error, to be honest, and I'm much more of an introvert. So all those introverts out there, I know this may not be your favorite thing to do, but I can tell you it can be. It can be if you're really focus on it and really make it yours, and really allow people to get to see you for who you are and why you do what you do. So that's why it was a piece of me saying it's important to know your why. And it was a personal journey. I took care of myself, and that's what I realized is my purpose is really to help women own their worth. And my mission is to help every single woman out there to be financially independent. That's the whole point to me wanting to teach this topic. For the first year of your business, it's very important that you focus on having these kinds of conversations with people, because this is how you are really going to master your sales conversation. That's how you're going to create the consistent income, the revenue that you need. Let's dive right into it. How to lead the call as an authority. And before we even go into all the tactics and everything about being an authority, I want you to know that this kind of authority that you're thinking about has nothing to do with you trying to intimidate someone. This is not you trying to belittle someone or show up in a way that it's not going to serve you or the other person. This authority is that showing up as yourself. Showing up as who you are and what you're about. What are your motivation? For example, I shared already. Why am I showing up today? Because I really do believe that every single woman deserves to be successful and financially independent. So how you're showing up is how you are showing up as an authority, as an expert, and that you really do care. And I'll go into the specifics of the tactics too. Being an authority is making yourself available in the conversation so that the person feels supported, that you actually are guiding them through the conversation. That is why it's important to have at the very beginning of the call so that you know how to lead the conversation. For example, when you first get on the phone with someone, like we have this habitual way of saying things to people like, how are you? Right? The first thing we usually say is, how are you? But what you really should be saying And I would suggest, and this is a way to really lead the conversation and to really assess to see what the other person is going through and how everything is going for them, is that instead of saying, how are you by default, I would say, first of all, you may want to find out where are they from, right? And which part of the country, what time zone are they on? So the first thing I would say to really begin to lead the conversations like, hi, I'm Didi Kai. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you today. Where are you dialing from? Like, where are you in the country? Then of course, that will give you the answer. That is one way to begin to really lead the conversation. Secondly, once they give you already the location of where they're going to be, the second thing you want to ask, how is your day going? How is your day going? Because chances are that's another way for you to really assess to see how their day is going. It's really important to know their state of mind that they're in so that you can really navigate the conversation. And then another way to make sure that you're leading as an authority is to be respectful. I know I'm speaking for most of my clients and also for myself. If you have a coaching or a consulting company, you are going to be getting a lot of information from the client. And it's also a great way for you to assess to see where they are, but always make sure that you're being respectful and ask them to consent. Like, for example, if you notice that they're going through something and you need to get them through that conversation by providing a little bit coaching, with respect, you have to ask for their consent. Is it okay with you if I share what I noticed or what's going on with you right now? Connection is going to get you really far in the conversation. To create yourself as an authority, you show up like as you really do care about the conversation and you really care about the person. So yes, where are you dialing from? Second question is, how is your day going? Chances are you have three options. The person may say, oh, my day is going great. It's fantastic. It's okay today. Or, oh, I'm having the worst day ever. That is how you can really begin to get into their world. Once you know how to get into their world, then you can really begin to set the tone for the conversation, right? Once you do the little small talks, figure out what's going on with them, and depends on where they are, you want to go straight into it. For example, the next transition that you want to go into, and it's important to set the expectations for you and also the prospective client that they know what to expect in the conversation. I would then start with, if you are ready, I would love to share what our agenda is going to be today. And based on my experience, I would like to carry our conversation and look at our conversation in three different perspectives. First of all, I would love to know what's going on, like what's happening in your world and what's working, what's not working. Secondly, I want to understand what is your ultimate vision. If you had a magic wand, what is your business going to look like, and what are you going to feel like running a successful business? What's in the way for you to create this type of result? And at the end of the conversation, if you seem like you are a fit for who we would like to work with, then with your permission, this is another piece here. You're asking for consent. With your permission, I would then love to share with you a plan of what it would look like if we would work together. Or I would like to share a plan of what it looked like for you to work with us. If you have a team, that's what you want to preface. Like, that's how you want to set the conversation. And ultimately, if it's not a fit, know that I'm going to be honest with you, and perhaps I would recommend you to someone who can fit your needs more appropriately right now. How does that sound? But either way, we're going to have a fantastic conversation. We're going to have a lot of fun. How does that sound? That's the tone of the conversation. That's how you want to set the expectations. First of all, you're calling out the agenda of what's going to happen, and so they understand what you're going to be doing. That way, the conversation is moving. Initially, you're going to be connecting with them already by getting to know them. Then as an authority, showing up as an authority, as a professional, you're setting the tone for how the call is going to go. And then you're already beginning to practice that respect piece of asking for permission with every single thing that you guys are talking about in the conversation. And I want to also suggest how you're going to be able to show up as an authority is that you can be direct and transparent. And what I mean by that is I see oftentimes people, especially in my earlier times where I first started having these kind of conversations, is that I just let the person go on, and it's 20 minutes and I haven't been able to get any kind of information about what's going on with them and if their business is working or not, or what's still going on. Another piece I would suggest for you to add to setting the agenda is also, last but not least, my apologies ahead of time that I may also interrupt you mid-thought because I want to be respectful of your time and my time. Super important. If you are a recovered people pleaser like me, please make sure you set the tone of the conversation that way. So no matter where you are and you feel like the person is going off tangent, you can always stop them so that way you can move on with the conversation, because the whole point of the conversation is for you to really fully understand what it is that they're going through so you can provide the right assessment for the next steps. Know that you have no opportunity to interrupt them by already telling them ahead of time that it may happen. I know that works really well for my conversations. I would encourage you to do that too. Ultimately, what I really mean by the way you are showing up, not only direct, but transparent as well. Transparent meaning like every single time if you hear there's a situation that you are not familiar with. For example, I was going back to telling a story of one of my recent conversations is this person wanted to build a brick and mortar business in a niche that, granted, I have worked in before, which is health and wellness, but it was a different niche in terms of demographics. She wanted to create an open gym. I'm just sharing as an example, an open gym for little kids, for 7-year-olds up into 13-year-olds. And I was completely honest with her. I said, yes, I have opened many yoga studios before in the past and things like that, but I haven't really worked with a niche such as young. So what I was really honest with her was like, I don't have that experience, but I know what you can do to make sure that you cover all bases in terms of making sure that your programming is up to par with the regulations and expectations, and even for the parents' expectations, is I would recommend for you to perhaps create a team with also some psychologists, like of who can be supporting you on that end. Tell you every single time I was transparent that way and really being able to help them problem solve, but at the same time stand out an expert. That's how you stand out as an authority. That's how then you can really show up as who you are. And I can tell you this, people can really tell if you really do mean what you mean by just the way that you are showing up. If you are really looking, unless you're in a Zoom call or like watching a live like this, you can try to look at someone's eyes through the lens, right? But on a phone call, for example, being able to create the space between your questions and then allowing time for you to really understand what's going on with the person is really important. Pacing yourself in a conversation is really important. I know that when I first started, I tend to speak really fast and I just wanted to get the information out there. It's just because I was really nervous. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not going to forget anything. But the one really amazing way to create an authority in your conversation is to be really mindful with what you're saying and being really diligent with the questions that you're asking, and ask more questions rather than acknowledging them by saying, okay. That's one way to make sure that you're listening generously. So yeah, instead of asking, how are you? I would right away start getting to know the person. Where are they calling from? Where are they calling from? and then they would go on saying, oh, I'm calling from such and such time zone, and for most reason we have daylight saving here. I would share that, oh great, you guys don't have daylight saving. I would go next to like different questions to get them to really start sharing of what it is that they're up to. And then the next question could be, how is your day going? Like, instead of how, you can say, how is your day going? The person has to really pause for a second and think about how their day is going to really answer you. So that's another way, instead of saying, how are you? Another question to use instead of how are you could be, what are you excited about today? Instead of how are you, you can say, where are you calling from? You can say, how is your day going? What are you excited about? What are you thinking about doing today? Things like that. And what are you up to? So different questions rather than just that how are you, because the how are you is more of a default. So then you're going to just go into a default answer. Oh, I'm okay. I'm great. You're not going to be able to get much out of it. And I know that so far we have talked about how to make sure that you're being an authority by being warm, by leading the conversation, by really getting to know the person of what it is they're going through, by creating that connection. Then you set the tone with the conversation in setting up the expectation, the agenda of the call. Then you're going into making sure that you're being really transparent, direct, and honest with what you know and what you don't know. Because remember what I said earlier, what you said was, if you seem to be a fit for us and the program that we offer, then I will share a plan with you in how we can work together. And if you're not a fit for us, I am happy to recommend you to someone that meets your needs right now. The person know that it may be a fit or may not be. And by you being honest with them all the way through, they can feel it. And so that's my share with you of how you can really show up as an authority. You can show up by the way you're speaking. You can pause when you need to pause, being really diligent with when you are saying something and really meaning it. But those are my tips for you in terms of how you can really set up your conversations and really show up as an authority. At the end of the day, we are in business for that human element. Right? It's not so much about what you do. People actually buy who you are. People really do buy who you are. One of the most important things that you can ever do in a way you're showing up is that you really care. That you really care. And it's not like something that you can pretend either. And that's why I keep going back to, it's important to really know why you do what you do and really tap into that. So we talk about how to be an authority. I invite you today to see how you are showing up in your conversations. And it could be, and don't think that this has to be all business, you guys. This also has everything to do with the way you are showing up in your personal life. This is a way you to show up that you're confident about what you're doing and that you mean what you mean and you are going to be keeping your word. You're keeping your word. This is what it is in your personal life. So I would say your challenge today is to see if you can have 3 conversations. It could be with your loved one, and really see if you can really show up like you are confident. And see if you have any sales calls today or this week, I would invite you to see if you can set the tone of the conversation. I know it's going to be really weird when you're like, oh, setting the tone with my girlfriend. Yes, absolutely. You can. It doesn't have to be a business related. I'm using my best friend case. I know we haven't talked for a while. Today, I just thought about you because I'm thinking about what to add in my book to share with the rest of the world. And I thought about that one time when we traveled together and how we have such an incredible experience. And I really wanted to share with you. That's what came up for me, and just to tell you that I miss you and catch up. That is setting up the tone for the conversation. It doesn't have to be business related. The unique way of getting you really present with what it is that you are doing. Trust me, we're so busy. Sometimes I go through the day on default. But if you are able to show up that way every single time, no matter where you are, as an authority, that you care about what it is that you're talking about and what you're selling, then that's how you can show up as an authority. The challenge today is to see if you can show up in a certain way, make you feel confident, and that apply all the tips, or maybe just one tip from what I've shared so far, to see if you can show up differently. I just love this topic. I can tell you, I learned it really the hard way. And so that's why I'm here to really make sure that no matter what it is that you're selling, that you're showing up in the most authentic way, and that you're really connecting with people. Because honestly, that no matter what the outcome of the conversation is, you are going to learn something new. You're going to learn something new about yourself, and you're gonna learn something new about the other person. Have 3 conversations where you can go all in, show up as an authority,